with when the offense has its struggles and isn't scoring the kind of points, I mean, does there ever come a time as a special teams coach that you're looking at your unit and thinking, if we can just do a little something to maybe help spark some things, it would really help? I mean, any different than you would normally be thinking that, you know?
I don't think so. You're always trying to find ways to help your team. I think sometimes you can hurt yourself by trying to do too much, forcing a play here or there. You get to a call in a situation that you don't like. That wasn't the plan, but you do it anyways because you feel like you need something. I've been a part of situations or seen situations from other teams where that stuff backfires. So the preparation we do throughout the week has to be the reason why that you're doing certain things, and usually the results will go well enough if you're playing good enough.
How'd you feel Amari Dallas did getting those additional kick returns, I should say?
I thought we were okay. There's some things that come up anytime that live action, not just for the two returners, but the guys blocking for them. We had a good return to start the game, and the ball came out. That can't happen. Maury got his hands on a ball. They tried to change some things up, and there were actually things that we repped throughout the week because they'd been pretty consistent in some aspects. And it's like, okay, but if this happens, here's how we need to handle it. So we can be better. It was okay. You'd like to be a little more consistent more often.
Are you at the point where you maybe repped most of what you're seeing, or is there still a lot of innovation going on with the kickoff in particular, where it's just you got to rely on your fundamentals?
We're getting closer to that, but I watched all the returns from this week within the last hour, and there's some things that are popping up now on both aspects. And it happens this way, and as a special teams coach, you see both sides of it. Sometimes as an offensive coach, you're just studying the offense, or you're just studying certain aspects of a defense. So I'm studying both parts of that. So as the return teams have started to adjust some things, you're seeing an emphasis on some coverage things to combat those things, and it'll continue to go back and forth. As the kickers are working on some things, those are popping up a little bit around the league, but it's going to be a process throughout the season, for sure.
Have you ever had a period like this in the past, in all your years, where you've had to adapt this much, both at the start of the season and then in season?
No. We're in uncharted territory.
Have you noticed, you guys and other teams around the league, have you guys kind of figured out the personnel side of this pretty well now? Like who should be where and what kind of player should fit certain situations?
At the beginning of this whole process, a lot of people thought size and put bigger people out there. It's not as much of a space play. And kind of building on what I was just talking about, as those things started to find themselves, you started to see return teams get bigger. And I watched 2 games this week, or from this week's games, where there was speed on the coverage teams, and it was successful. So there's a cat and mouse aspect to that. I think the most important thing that we can do as coaches is to teach our guys versatility and to be able to place different players different places. And as the season starts to go on, when you feel like guys have had enough reps at certain things, start bringing it to the games.
Seems you settled into mostly kicking off into the end zone. Obviously, Buffalo, there was wind, in fact, but since then it seems that that's been pretty consistent. Any specific reason for that and your strategy?
Yeah, there's usually reasons for everything. I wouldn't want to get into that. We felt like in the situation so far that was the best thing to do, and it changes week to week, and every game's different. Every play is different.
Last week you said that you think things will adapt, be changed by the league at some point towards the end of the season. Why and what do you think? Like, why do you think those changes will be made? What do you think will be changed or adjusted?
I think there's still a conversation to be had on if the touchback was going to be at the 30-yard line or the 35. I don't know that they're definitely going to adjust that, but I think that's the thing that has come up, and I don't think that those conversations are fair just yet because I don't think there's enough of a sample size. I also think that, every year when you get late in the year, the last 5-6 weeks of the season, the return rate spikes because the weather affects the ball. And, sometimes by the end of the year, if there's some different people kicking off than there are earlier in the year. Some guys wear down. The return rate always spikes towards the end of the season. And until we get to that point, I mean, just from what I'm seeing, the high-speed collisions appear to be down. The soft tissue stuff appears to be down. I'm not privy to all the league data. Those are some of the things that have been talked about as the reason why we wanted to change the play initially. But those are the things I think it's how does it affect the game, right? Whether it's the 30 or the 35s. Is it affecting scoring? Is it reducing punts? And then the safety issues will be something they'll always look at.
I know that special teams coordinators were heavily involved, more or less, in terms of, I know there was a couple very much involved, but you guys were all kind of talking about what this was going to be. And I know it's a one-year thing, so then do they go back to the crowd again and to talk to you about changing it up, do you think? Or will that be handled, okay, we've got this in place, now the tweaks will happen above your head, essentially?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think when it's come to rule changes in the last 7 or 8 years regarding the kickoff, some of the things have been talked about, the punt, onside kick, is it going to be 4th and 15, things like that. They've included the special teams coaches into the conversation. Generally speaking, there's a handful of guys that are speaking directly to the league's decision makers. There also appears to be, or there has been in the past, where those guys will reach out to us and we'll have conference calls, or they'll solicit those opinions, and then it kind of goes away and you're kind of waiting for them to come up with a decision. But I would say that I don't know how many. There's always head coaches involved because you're talking about competition committee, you're talking about the league meeting votes, like all of those things. But I don't know how many offensive and defensive coaches, are involved in those aspects. I don't know how much they're involved in those conversations if they're talking about whatever the conversation was about no more cover 2. Like, I don't know if they're involved in those things. But, yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, we at least get to express an opinion. How much they listen remains to be seen in some aspects, but we're happy to offer information to anybody that'll listen.
The rules are the rules, and you got to coach to them. But do you like this sort of challenge? Does it get your creative and analytical juices going to have to adapt to something like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's been 6 months since this thing's been coming down the pipe. So you always think you have a great idea and great plans, or else you wouldn't be doing those things. And then you see what everyone else is doing and the things that are having success. And at the end of the day, I think it doesn't matter what we think or know or whatever as coaches. It's whatever the players can do, whatever they can have success doing, that's what you ought to be doing. It always comes down to guys making plays on the field, and the better that we can coach them up, the better they'll perform.
If you were king for a day, is there a rule that you would institute or change?
King for a day?
Like that idea?
No, I don't have any thoughts off the top of my head.
You mentioned punts, and I think last week you mentioned about it also, the potential to affect field position, with the ball starting at a different place. And,
Sure.
And is there any data yet, or is it still too small a sample size to see how it is affecting overall the punting game and field position?
Yeah, we've talked about a couple things. We talked about a couple things over the weekend with our analytics people, game management, and we have some ideas on how those things, may be playing out. But this isn't the time to be studying those types of things from my aspect. It's just, hey, this might be something to look at. Is this a trend that's kind of early in the season, or is this sustainable throughout the season? But yeah, I mean, I do feel like after a kickoff, you know, the ball, you just don't see a ton of punts after a kickoff from like inside your 20. You know, it's usually, I mean, if it's a touchback, it's the 30. If you get a couple yards, it's 35. Generally speaking, those punts are in and up, you know, inside the other 20.